Welcome to the Ramayan, Stories of Dharm and Devotion. I'm Sandeep, your storyteller, guiding you through the timeless epic of Valmiki's Ramayan. Our account draws deeply from Valmiki's original text and is enriched by the resonances of other Indian traditions, ensuring a fully immersive experience. In previous episodes, we followed Hanuman, driven by unwavering devotion to Ram, as he crossed treacherous seas and penetrated the heart of Lanka, scouring its grand palaces for any sign of Sita. Every courtyard, every opulent chamber presented both awe and heartache, for though the wonders were immense, Sita remained elusive. Now, in this episode, the story moves to a momentous turning point. At long last, destiny will guide Hanuman to the very presence of the captive princess, breathing new life into the quest that once teetered on despair. Join me as we witness the profound and hopeful instant when Hanuman's relentless determination is rewarded, and the path toward restoring Dharm becomes clearer than ever before.
As Hanuman continues his search, he discovers one towering structure among the many grand residences, a colossal edifice set to span half a yojana in length and rise a yojana high. Within its fortified compound, Hanuman notes troops of elite demon guards standing watch with raised weapons. The walls seem to hold countless treasures, from Kuber-like riches to fine crafts reminiscent of Maya's illusions. From every corner, jeweled pillars and golden window lattices reflect torchlight, merging into a dazzling display of Raavan's might. Elephants with 2, 3, and even 4 tusks fill the stables, creatures of awe-inspiring power, quietly but unmistakably asserting the fearsome wealth of their master. Passing them by, Hanuman encounters a vast hall reminiscent of heaven itself, its floors painted with the shapes of rivers, mountains, and oceans, and its pillars inlaid with gold, silver, and precious stones. Glimmering lamps, suspended from overhead beams, throw dancing light across the scene. Soon, Hanuman's keen senses detect an enticing blend of fragrances, opulent scents wafting from fine foods, spiced liquors, and exotic flowers. Following it, he comes upon a richly adorned hall where Raavan's women from many lands and lineages lie fast asleep. Pearl necklaces shimmer faintly against their repose, and scattered flower garlands attest to earlier festivities. Glimpses of color from luxurious silks and half-lucent jewels offer silent witness to the night's revelries. In this intimate chamber, some women rest upon their own arms, others doze against the shoulders or laps of their companions. Delicately carved ivory panels and crystal windows gleam along the perimeter, while golden lamps stand like silent sentinels. A gentle hedge from incense sticks drifts through the air, leaving soft wisps of aromatic smoke. Even amid this dreamlike scene, Hanuman remains steadfast. He does not forget his mission to locate Devi Sita. Though these corridors overflow with the spoils of Raavan's conquests and the presence of countless women, only Janak's daughter matters to him now. With each silent step, he scrutinizes every face and every corner, searching for the one captive whose rescue will restore hope to Ram. Raavan's wealth appears endless treasures, rivaling the fortunes of Indra, Varun, or even Kuber himself. Yet, for Hanuman, the grandeur provokes neither wonder nor greed. In the hush of midnight, he feels only a growing sense of urgency. Despite the magnificence of carved pillars and gem-studded pillars, no sign of Sita emerges. Each unrecognized figure deepens his longing and steels his resolve. Still, Hanuman takes measure of his surroundings. He sees how Raavan's power extends beyond martial prowess. It includes lavish indulgence, intricate devotion to pleasure, and a sheer scale of resources that would daunt the bravest of adversaries. If this realm can be penetrated, it affirms that no fortress, however splendid or secure, is impervious to devoted perseverance. At last, in one grand chamber, Hanuman beholds Raavan himself. Draped in golden raiment and smeared with fragrant red sandalwood, Raavan's enormous form sprawls across a resplendent bed, like a dark rain cloud tinged by sunset hues. Jeweled ornaments glimmer at his wrists, neck, and ears. His crown lies slightly askew, hinting at a night of revelry. Scars mark his powerful arms, testaments to clashes with gods and mighty creatures. Tusks of Indra's elephant Iravat and the fearsome divine weapons have left their indelible marks. Around him lie numerous demonesses, none lacking in beauty, lineage, or skill. Their brilliant jewelry and costly garments lie in gentle disarray, revealing a company that has celebrated into the small hours. As Hanuman scanned the grand chamber, his gaze fell upon a figure of striking grace. Draped in fine silks and adorned with jewels that gleamed in the soft lamplight, she reclined with the poise of one accustomed to wealth and reverence. Something in her countenance, a gentle glow about the face, perhaps, sparked a fleeting hope in Hanuman's heart. In that moment, he allowed himself to think, at last, could this be Sita, the noble daughter of King Janak? Yet, as he quietly drew closer, Hanuman began to discern the subtle ways in which this regal woman differed from all he knew of Sita. His memories of the princess, her unassuming radiance and deep humility, her serene bearing marked by unwavering devotion, did not match the aura emanating from this stranger. While she exuded beauty and composure, there was a self-assured confidence in her posture, and the jeweled crown resting beside her suggested a station far beyond that of a captive held under duress. He also noted that her garments, though artfully draped, showed no signs of grief or distress. No trace of sorrow clung to her features. Her serene face betrayed no evidence of tears or longing. And if she were truly imprisoned, would her surroundings be this lavish? Would she sleep among courtiers, unrestrained by guards? Hanuman felt certain that Sita, whisked away by force and held against her will, would reflect more sorrow and anxiety in her bearing. He lingered for another instant, searching for some other clue, perhaps a faint gesture or a whispered name that might confirm her identity. Nothing came. The more he observed her fine jewels, her proud stance, and the lavish comfort enfolding her, the more convinced he became that she was no captive at all. No signs indicated that she remained separated from a beloved husband, grieving night after night. This was not the haunted look of someone yearning for a lost home, hoping for rescue. Slowly, the truth settled over him like a dawn mist parting in the morning sun. She must be Mandodari, Raavan's chief queen, famed for her beauty and grace. Indeed, she bore the dignity one would expect from one seated at the side of the demon king. A pang of disappointment struck Hanuman's heart, for he understood that, once again, Sita was nowhere to be found in these gilded halls. The fleeting hope he had dared to cherish faded quickly, replaced by new resolve. Though this palace brimmed with opulence enough to dazzle the gods themselves, the only true treasure that mattered was still missing. Reminding himself of Ram's anguish and the promise he had made, Hanuman steeled his spirit to search on. He would not leave until every corridor and chamber lay behind him, for there could be no rest until he fulfilled his sacred mission and found Sita. And so, with a whispered prayer on his lips, Hanuman turned from the slumbering queen to continue deeper into Raavan's palace. Each silent step carried him further away from that moment of false hope, yet it also carried him closer to the possibility of finally beholding the one woman for whom he had journeyed so far across treacherous waters and hidden realms. The quest to find Sita was not over, not by any measure. Thus, Hanuman pressed on, guided by duty, devotion, and the unyielding bond he shared with Ram, determined that no door would be left unopened, no shadow left unexplored in the search for Janak's noble daughter. Hanuman continued his exploration of Raavan's house and found himself in a lavish section seemingly devoted to revelry. The floor glowed with the remains of opulent feasts, where Raga's melodies mingled with tangy sauces and salty delicacies. Strings of necklaces, anklets, and armlets lay scattered among vessels brimming with Hufferton fruits and flower petals. The very air seemed filled with a festive radiance, despite the absence of fire or blazing torches. In one corner stood an ornate bar, replete with couches and chairs set out in careful arrangement. Their plush cushions bore faint impression of those who had rested or reclined there. Pots of various meats, prepared with an array of exquisite seasonings, were separated by type and displayed on carved wooden stands. Several varieties of liquor gleamed in crystal and gold containers: sura, sugar-based spirits, honey wine, floral liquors, fruit infusions, and even a few artificially crafted concoctions. Each brew had been blended with aromatic powders to enhance its taste and fragrance. Nearby, many couches stood empty, but others were occupied by Raavan's women. Some slept in gentle embrace, their arms draped around one another. In their drowsy state, a few had unwittingly tugged at the garments of those lying beside them, pulling the cloth toward themselves for warmth. Delicate sashes slipped from throats and shoulders, and every exhalation fluttered the fabric and flower garlands adorning these slumbering figures. Among the many women in Raavan's house, some possessed a fair complexion, some a gleaming black hue, and others radiated a golden glow. Exhausted by pleasure and lulled by sleep, they appeared as still and serene as closed lotuses drifting on a dark pond. Hanuman took in the entire scene without spotting Devi Sita. The realization struck him with sudden force, bringing a pang of despair and stirring a concern for the sanctity of his actions. A troubling thought crossed his mind. Was it right to gaze upon the sleeping wives of another, even in pursuit of his noble quest? Hanuman reflected that his mission required him to search every corner of Raavan's domain. He reminded himself that as long as his heart remained pure and fixed on his devotion to Ram, his actions would remain free from sin. Nevertheless, he felt the sting of doubt. He consoled himself that a missing woman could not be sought among female deer. Just so, the search for Sita must extend to every place where human women might dwell. He vowed that, though he had seen these others, his mind remained as steady as a rock, unclouded by any unholy desire. He recalled that he had witnessed women from many backgrounds, daughters of Devas, Gandharvas, and Nagas, all claimed by Raavan's power, but he had found no trace of Janak's daughter. Unable to relinquish hope, Hanuman withdrew from the bar, leaving behind the clamor of half-finished feasts and glimmering ornaments. He steeled himself for yet another turn in this endless search, determined not to rest until Sita was found. Hanuman continued his tireless search, traversing every corner of Raavan's colossal residence. Weariness and doubt began to weigh upon his soul. He told himself that if Devi Sita truly lived in the city, he should have found at least a trace of her presence by now. Dark thoughts encroached on his mind. Perhaps she had fallen victim to Raavan's cruelty, or perhaps she had died from grief and fear in this land of merciless demons. Hanuman imagined the pure and faithful daughter of King Janak pitted against a tyrant like Raavan. The possibility that she had perished felt horrifyingly real. Fighting against this rising despair, Hanuman reminded himself that determination and absence of despondency could turn the tide of any challenge. He whispered a vow not to abandon his mission in dejection. Recalling his strength and the discipline of his mind, he resolved to continue. Raavan's palace and city were vast, and not every nook and cranny had yet been explored. There were still hidden regions, underground chambers, and distant corners that lay outside the grand avenues he had thoroughly examined. With that renewed purpose, he took to the air once more, leaping between rooftops and descending into shadowy recesses. He opened every door that would yield, stepping across thresholds and climbing stairwells, peering into wide courtyards and behind tall walls. He traced every narrow street, examined the spaces near the fortifications, and even inspected wells and lakes where one might hide in despair. He saw strange women of many races, shapes, and forms, daughters of the Devas, Gandharvas, and Nagas, but not the noble Sita. Again and again, disappointment bit at him. His efforts felt wasted, his earlier optimism draining with each fruitless discovery. His mind wavered, reliving how he had soared across the sea with such confidence, only to find no sign of Janak's daughter within the maze of Raavan's grand city. Bitter thoughts flickered. Had all their hopes, all their immense exertions led only to this? At last, wearied of spirit, Hanuman stepped away from the splendid regions. Leaving that place and its lingering aroma of strong liquors and scattered flowers, he paused to steady his resolve. This was a moment of crisis, but his devotion to Ram refused to crumble. Though doubt tugged at him, he pressed his hands together in silent prayer, willing his courage to hold firm in the face of heartbreak. With one final determined breath, he readied himself to resume the quest, no matter how hopeless it might seem. Hanuman, the leader of the Vanas, stood on a high vantage point near the outer wall of Raavan's fortress. Like a streak of lightning within a thunderous cloud, he moved with swift and determined steps, leaving behind the grand palaces. Though he had scoured countless halls, pleasure houses, and opulent chambers, he had yet to find Devi Sita, the cherished daughter of King Janak and beloved wife of Ram. In that moment, he recalled his duty and the faith placed in him by Ram, Sugriv, and the Vanas. He realized that returning to Kishkindha empty-handed would spell disaster, not only for himself, but for all who depended on news of Devi Sita's welfare. Imagining Ram's anguish, how his sorrow would surely claim his life, Hanuman found the thought unbearable. The downfall of the Ikshvaku dynasty flashed before him. If Ram succumbed to despair, Lakshman would also perish, and so would Bharat and Shatrughan. From there, grief would spread to the mothers of the princes and tear the Vanar kingdom apart. Sugriv would give up his life in remorse, and the Vanas, bound to their king by loyalty, would follow him in a tragic wave of despair. Such a grim fate would arise simply because Hanuman had not found Devi Sita. Overwhelmed by this dire vision, Hanuman considered a drastic choice. Perhaps he should remain in Lanka, sustaining himself on whatever roots and fruits he could gather, or else end his life in self-imposed exile. In the depth of his sorrow, even a warrior as mighty as the son of Vayu pondered retreat. Better to vanish alone than to witness the downfall of friends and royals alike. Yet, recalling the wisdom he had learned along the way, Hanuman reminded himself that hopelessness is the true adversary of success. Indeed, the crossing of the ocean and every valiant deed he had performed so far testified to the power of unwavering resolve. He realized that his search was not yet complete. A corner of Lanka, a place thick with forest groves, remained unexplored, the Ashok garden. Sampati's words echoed in his mind, affirming that Devi Sita must be here in Raavan's stronghold. He felt a flicker of courage rekindle inside his heart. There was still hope, still a chance to discover Devi Sita in the depths of the Ashok garden. Any other course, whether returning to Kishkindha with no tidings or throwing himself to destruction, would only lead to tragedy. If Devi Sita truly was alive, she needed him now more than ever. Hanuman could not abandon the mission, no matter the cost. Resolute once more, he bowed with reverence to the gods and all beings who might bless his endeavor. He offered a silent prayer to Ram and Lakshman, to Indra and Yam, and to Vayu, his own divine father. A swift sense of purpose flared within him, driving away the last shadows of doubt. He vowed to search every root and branch of the Ashoka garden, believing that, with enough devotion, he would find the one who gave happiness to the Ikshvaku dynasty. With renewed determination, Hanuman, the son of Vayu, sprang from the compound wall and resolved to search the Ashok garden. Even as he undertook this primary mission to find Devi Sita, he carried in his mind a second purpose: to study every facet of Lanka's defenses, its fortifications, and its hidden passages. Should war break out, this knowledge would prove invaluable to Ram and the Vanas, ensuring that Lanka's grandeur was not merely admired, but also understood as a potential battlefield. Hanuman moved with deliberate care, taking in the thick walls, the ornamental arches, and the multitude of watchtowers visible through the scattered trees. He also gauged the positions of armed sentries and noted how they shifted at intervals. His sharp eyes traced the outlines of concealed archery posts, hidden gates, and wide courtyards that could accommodate entire battalions. All this information he committed to memory without slowing his advance, for discovering Sita remained his highest priority. When at last he entered the Ashok garden, its breathtaking beauty seized his attention. Rows of majestic trees, adorned with blossoms in full bloom, stood shoulder to shoulder with various trees. Creepers laden with bright flowers wrapped themselves around trunks and branches, creating secluded bowers and softly lit alcoves. High waterfalls cascaded from a nearby mountain, and their streams meandered through the garden, flowing like graceful dancers reunited with beloved partners. In his heart, Hanuman hoped that Devi Sita, if she was still alive, might be drawn to this tranquil heaven. He imagined the noble daughter of King Janak, weary from sorrow, yet seeking solace in the hush of springtime blossoms and cool, clear waters. He knew Sita was a princess who once loved to wander through the groves of her homeland. Surely, if Raavan permitted her any freedom at all, she would gravitate here. Hanuman flitted among the branches like a swift arrow released from a mighty bow. He stirred the trees with his tail, feet, and hands, causing torrents of flowers to rain upon him, until he almost resembled a living mound of blossoms. He reminded himself to remain unseen by the demons, so he kept his form small and light. The fragrance of sandalwood, vibrant blossoms, and the gentle trickle of ponds mingled around him. But these enchanting scents did not distract him from his second aim, noting the layout of each path, wall, and structure that might prove crucial in a future conflict. As he explored deeper, Hanuman discovered golden platforms surrounded by pillars and artificial ponds paved with shimmering pearls. He reasoned that, if Sita was anywhere in this garden, she would likely appear along the clear water ponds or sheltered pathways to perform the rites she once did at dawn or dusk. At last, as Hanuman traversed a cluster of tall blossoming trees, their branches laden with perfumed blossoms, he saw before him a solitary figure. Immediately, a current of warmth and wonder flowed through him, for the scene that met his eyes was unlike any other he had witnessed among Raavan's captives. He beheld a woman seated on the bare ground, her face downcast, her clothes soiled and worn thin. Around her stood a circle of fierce demonesses, brandishing cruel expressions and weapons in quiet threat. Yet despite her destitution, her aura felt suffused with a gentle luminosity, as though a sliver of moonlight had fallen from the heavens to rest in this fearful place. Pausing on a thick tree bough, Hanuman found his breath catch in his throat. The woman's disheveled form, trembling in sorrow and solitude, reminded him fiercely of his own mother, Anjana, in her moments of tender concern for him. He felt a pang of empathy so strong that it warmed his eyes with tears. The memory of how his mother's gentle presence had comforted him through moments of mischief and fear now mingled with the sight of this lonely figure who exuded a motherly forbearance despite her dire predicament. Steeling himself to look more closely, he recognized details Ram had once described. The lines of her graceful limbs and the elegance of her posture, even amid anguish, hinted at royal birth. Her large, lotus-like eyes were dulled by sorrow but retained a quiet dignity. The once fine yellow cloth, though worn and tattered, recalled a regal radiance undiminished by hardship. Tiny marks on her wrists from well-worn ornaments suggested this was a woman of high virtue, who until recently had enjoyed a life adorned with precious gems. The resemblance to the descriptions Ram had given struck Hanuman with certainty. This was indeed Sita, the beloved daughter of King Janak, her appearance marred by torment, yet her innate beauty undimmed. Hanuman was swept by a tidal wave of conflicting emotions the moment his eyes fell upon the frail yet dignified figure of Devi Sita. Relief surged in him first, for his long and perilous quest, crossing vast oceans and infiltrating Lanka's fearsome defenses, had borne fruit at last. Joy quickly followed, because here, alive and before him, was the very soul of Ram's world. Yet, heartbreak lanced his heart as he beheld her wretched state, garments soiled, body emaciated, eyes dulled by relentless sorrow. It reminded him of the tender solace he had always found in his own mother's gentle care. And knowing Devi Sita's role as the revered queen of Ayodhya, the vision of her suffering struck him like a personal wound. Anger, too, welled within him at the demonesses who towered menacingly around her. But he tempered that fury with caution, fully aware that a reckless move might endanger her further. Above all, an overwhelming sense of gratitude and devotion took hold of him. Gratitude to the divine powers for guiding him here, and devotion to Ram, whose faith in him had led him to this poignant moment. Thus, all at once, Hanuman's soul brimmed with relief, compassion, wrath, and an indomitable determination to see Sita freed from her captivity. Hanuman's eyes flickered to the hostile demonesses looming nearby. Their twisted faces and menacing poses underscored the dark oppression that held Devi Sita captive. He could hardly contain the fierce wave of protective anger that rose within him. But he tempered it with caution, remembering that a precipitous move now could put Devi Sita in even greater danger. He needed a plan and patience to ensure her safety and secure Ram's victory. Yet in this instant, fear and rage gave way to a profound sense of gratitude. Through every setback, each hour of despair, and each pang of doubt, fortune had led him here. He pressed his palms together, lifting them in silent prayer to Ram, to the gods, and to his own mother's memory, for granting him the chance to stand witness to Devi Sita's survival. Quickly, though, he composed himself. He would have to act with both prudence and devotion, as Devi Sita's well-being hung on the slender thread of secrecy. His gaze settled once more on Devi Sita's grief-stricken face, and his resolve crystallized. Beneath the swirling tensions of possible war lay a greater cause, love and righteousness. He would not rest until he found a way to convey hope to Devi Sita and bring the promise of rescue from Ram's steadfast heart. The weight of all who waited, Ram, Lakshman, Sugriv, and the entire Vanar race, pressed upon his spirit, but he held it as an honor rather than a burden, knowing that every step he took here would pave the path to Devi Sita's deliverance. High in that flowering canopy, tears of mingled anguish and resolve glistened on Hanuman's cheeks. In a hushed voice meant only for the wind, he whispered, "Mother Sita, you are found." And with renewed devotion, he set out to formulate his plan, to reach the forlorn princess, reassure her, and gather the final pieces of knowledge he needed, so that Ram might one day bring Lanka's terrible reign to an end. Even as grief pressed heavily upon him at the sight of Devi Sita's plight, Hanuman steadied his heart. Sitting quietly atop the stout branch of that flowering tree, he gazed at the frail form beneath him and praised her silent courage. He recalled Ram's own words and traits, comparing them with the woman before him, her posture, the shape of her eyes, the yellow cloth clinging to her frame. Everything confirmed that she was truly the daughter of Janak and the cherished wife of Ram. Reflecting on her auspicious bodily marks, eyes like lotus petals, limbs that once glowed with the luster of new gold, he felt certain of her identity, like a man who recognizes a long-lost jewel the instant he sees its sparkle. In the hush of that moment, Hanuman murmured words of praise for Devi Sita and for Ram, marveling at how her virtues complemented Ram's own. He reminded himself how, for her sake, Ram and Lakshman had risked everything, battling fearsome foes like Kabandha and Khair. Sugriv's fortunes had changed dramatically too, all to help restore her to Ram's side. Hanuman thought of the many wonders already performed, crossing the ocean, infiltrating Lanka, and found them fair efforts in the face of Sita's anguish. Indeed, if Ram turned the world upside down for her sake, Hanuman felt it would only be just. In his eyes, The whole expanse of the three worlds was no match for Sita's worth. A torrent of compassion welled in Hanuman's chest as he surveyed her condition. She, who had once known the gracious life of Ayodhya, now sat in soiled robes, imprisoned among vicious demonesses. Like a lotus battered by frost, her natural radiance was subdued, yet her devotion to Ram kept her body and spirit clinging to hope. Hanuman, recalling his own sense of filial duty, felt his eyes grow hot with tears, for she reminded him of a beloved mother figure enduring trials beyond measure. Still, he saw that even under the weight of suffering, her heart remained steadfast. He sensed no hint of wavering from her love for Ram, an undiminished flame, even when surrounded by the shadows of despair. He consoled himself by recalling that Ram, too, displayed astounding strength by continuing to live in her absence. To Hanuman's eyes, it was a wonder either of them had endured, their bond so deep that separation felt almost unthinkable. And yet, there they were, Sita huddled at the base of a tree in a distant garden, Ram anxiously awaiting news at Kishkindha, each breathing only by virtue of faith in the other's survival. That knowledge fired Hanuman's determination once more. Adjusting his posture on the bough, he made himself as small as possible, prepared to watch over Sita from afar and plan his next move. Even as waves of sorrow and anger churned within him, he resolved to act with wisdom, for he saw that these crucial moments were balanced on a razor's edge. One day, he vowed, the joyous reunion of Ram and Sita would blossom from the seeds of all these hardships. For now, though he had to remain silent, vigilant, and strong, his mind fixed upon rescuing the woman whose courage shone even amid the cruel domain of Raavan. Standing perched among the branches, Hanuman watched in equal parts horror and relief as Sita remained beneath a great tree amid that twisted garden, surrounded by monstrous ogresses with frightful limbs and ghoulish faces. Each demoness, foul in appearance and habit, seemed to magnify Sita's own purity, her forlorn figure cast in stark contrast to their malevolent forms. Though thick with sorrow, Sita still glimmered with an ethereal grace, her hair unkempt, her garments soiled and creased, but her spirit unmistakably resilient. The weight of captivity clung to her like a dense shadow, yet Hanuman observed that her dedication to Ram shimmered beneath the layers of grief. She was like a new moon veiled by dark clouds at season's end, possessing a gentle radiance that refused to be completely obscured. Her eyes, shaped like a doe's, flicked nervously among the ogresses, her frail body betraying the anguish she had endured. Still, in her posture and quiet dignity, Hanuman recognized the same unwavering devotion for which Ram so yearned. Struck by the sight of Sita trapped in this nightmare realm, his heart both bled with empathy and soared with triumph. He silently offered obeisance to Ram and Lakshman, tears of gratitude brimming in his eyes, and carefully concealed himself behind the leaves, planning how best to reveal his presence and bring hope to the wife of his beloved lord.
With Devi Sita now in sight, a new chapter of hope dawns, yet countless questions loom. How will Hanuman reveal himself to her? What perils still lurk in the demon-ridden stronghold of Lanka? And will this crucial discovery spark the final turn of fate that unites Ram with his beloved? Join us for the next episode of the Ramayan, Stories of Dharm and Devotion, where devotion meets destiny, and a single glimmer of hope stands against the gathering storm. Share this podcast with those dear to you, allowing the timeless lessons of the Ramayan, compassion, courage, and unwavering faith to illuminate your own life's journey. Though the details of this ancient tale may differ across traditions, its heart remains a beacon of inspiration for all who stand at the crossroads of adversity. Until we meet again, may the light of Dharm guide your steps and fill your heart with serenity.